happens after a ninja dies? This is a question that for a long time, we as a Naruto community didn't have an answer to. We saw characters die in the earliest days of Naruto, like Haku and Zabuza, and we didn't know if they were descending down to the Shadow Realm or ascending to heaven. And while obviously most anime don't tell you what happens after certain characters die, it's not like in One Piece they're like, oh, don't worry, Ace is in a better place. About 60 or so episodes into Naruto, we began to realize that there might actually be a physical afterlife in Naruto, as during the Konoha Crush arc, Hiruzen used the Reaper Death Seal, a technique that summoned a literal death shikigami to pull Orochimaru's soul into limbo. But the existence of a death shikigami and the existence of limbo must imply that there's some other form of the afterlife. And Hiruzen, by pulling Orochimaru's soul into the shikigami's stomach, that he's stopping it from going somewhere else. And thus the Naruto community started to ask questions. If Orochimaru were to simply be killed by Hiruzen instead of sealed, would his soul have gone somewhere else? Is there more shikigami that control the souls of the deceased? And if we can interfere with the passage of souls into the afterlife, what else can we do? Well, in that very same fight, in fact, before we even saw Hiruzen use the Reaper Death Seal, we saw Orochimaru for the first time ever use Edo Tensei, a technique that allowed Orochimaru to bring the dead back to life. But in that battle of Hiruzen versus Orochimaru, we didn't understand how Edo Tensei worked yet. And in our defense, neither did Orochimaru, as Orochimaru's control over Tobirama and Hashirama was tentative at best. But still, whether or not Orochimaru fully understood what he was doing doesn't make a huge amount of difference. As we saw with the power of this technique that apparently Tobirama created, that Orochimaru was able to re-summon the souls of dead shinobi. And just like that, in one battle, two separate instances of the existence of an afterlife in Naruto popped out of nowhere. And thus Naruto gave us evidence of something that a lot of typical anime don't, the proof of a canon afterlife in their universe. And it wasn't until substantially later on in the anime that we would truly fully understand what that afterlife was. And that afterlife was the Pure Lands. In fact, there's tons of places your soul can go in Naruto. And today I want to talk about all of those places, what they're like, and how you get there. And most specifically, what all of these places are based on, as places like the Pure Lands are heavily based in Buddhist mythology, and better understanding that mythology helps us better understand Naruto. But before we get to understanding anything, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if you like the sound of this voice explaining things, then you're gonna love my other channel, The Weeb Commander, where I explain things from anime that aren't Naruto. Or if you just like the sound of this voice, go ahead and follow my brand new podcast, Otaku's Anonymous, with Danny Mata, where me and him break down everything that happened in anime this week. It's available on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. So, when it comes to your soul going somewhere in Naruto, it can really go one of 4 places. And 3 of those places kind of suck, and one seems okay. And today we're going to talk about those 4 places and why they either suck or don't. Now, there's really no reason to put any of these 4 places in any sort of order, so the order is going to be how many people are in them from the least to the most. Which means the first place we're going to talk about is the place that either has 1, 2, or 0 souls in it currently, and that would be the Realm of Drunken Dreams. Now, the Realm of Drunken Dreams is tied to the Sword of Totsuka, which is the primary weapon of Itachi Susanoo. Now, Itachi's Totsuka blade is a variant of the Sword of Kusanagi, as the Sword of Kusanagi are actually one of the 3 imperial regalia of Japan. Now, the 3 imperial regalia of Japan are 3 items passed between every emperor in the history of Japan. And those 3 imperial regalia are the Yada Mirror, the Magetama, and the Sword of Kusanagi. The Sword of Totsuka is considered a variant of the Sword of Kusanagi because it's said to be able to cut through everything. However, it's based on more than just the Sword of Kusanagi, as the Totsuka blade is actually a massively important blade in Shinto lore. Shinto lore is basically like Japanese Greek mythology. See, the first time that we see the Totsuka blade used in Shinto lore is when Izanagi uses it to kill his son Kagutsuchi, as Kagutsuchi's birth burned his mother Izanami to death. And from the blood of Kagutsuchi, 8 new Shinto gods were born, like Susanoo and Amaterasu. The Totsuka blade would then later be used by Susanoo to kill the 8-headed snake Orochi, which the battle between Itachi and Orochimaru is supposed to be a direct reference to. However, what makes this sort of Totsuka very unique is the fact that it's sheathed inside of a sake bottle. You see, because Itachi's Kusanagi blade isn't physical, it's ethereal. It's comprised out of the chakra of a Susanoo, which is why Orochimaru failed in finding it for so many years, as Orochimaru not only wanted his sword of Kusanagi, but the sword of Totsuka. Because the sword of Totsuka is sheathed in a sake jar, it has an unusual property. And that unusual property is that anything pierced by this Totsuka blade will get sealed into the realm of drunken dreams, which is a pocket dimension that exists inside of the sake jar that Itachi holds and sheaths his sword into. We've seen two people sealed with this technique, Orochimaru and Nagato. Now, the reason that I say there might be one person or two people or zero people sealed away in the realm of drunken dreams is because we're not entirely sure how it works. See, we have absolutely seen two people sealed with this blade. When Itachi managed to push Sasuke to his limits and therefore make him run out of chakra, this allowed Orochimaru to break out of the cursed seal of heaven, which is exactly what Itachi was looking for. When Orochimaru started using his 8 branches technique and created 8 snake heads to battle against Itachi's Susanoo, Itachi took the massive target that Orochimaru gave him and stabs Orochimaru directly through the stomach using his sword of Totsuka, at which part Orochimaru's body and soul started to get sucked into the realm of drunken dreams. However, unfortunately, only a couple minutes after this happens, Itachi dies. And considering the fact that only a couple dozen episodes later Orochimaru is revived using the curse mark on Anko, this seems to imply that Orochimaru's soul got released when Itachi died, because we know through the medium of Edo Tensei that summoning the soul from the Pure Lands is instrumental. So if hypothetically Orochimaru's soul was still sealed, just having a little bit of chakra and DNA from Anko's curse mark shouldn't be enough to bring him back to life. The second time we see somebody get sealed away into the realm of drunken dreams is when Itachi is battling against the reincarnated Nagato. After scuffling with Nagato for a little bit, Itachi manages to surprise Nagato and stabs him through the stomach with the sword of Totsuka, at which point the Edo Tensei on Nagato is broken because his soul is transported into the realm of drunken dreams and no longer in his Edo Tensei body. Once again, enforcing the idea that regardless of what iteration of you being alive you currently are, you need your soul. But once again, about 5 to 10 minutes later, Itachi releases his soul from Edo Tensei, which possibly could release Nagato from the realm of drunken dreams. But the fact that Itachi was technically dead but still had access to the realm of drunken dreams makes me believe that he might always have access to it. That is to say that the realm of drunken dreams might exist separate of Itachi, which would further imply that both Nagato and Orochimaru's souls still exist there, which would be genuinely terrible for both of them, as the realm of drunken dreams is pretty much the last place you want your soul to end up. See, because the realm of drunken dreams is a genjutsu subdimension, and the genjutsu you're placed under in this realm of drunken dreams is that you're incredibly dizzy forever. Imagine the worst spins you've ever had after a night of drinking. Now imagine that for eternity. That's what the realm of drunken dreams is. That's why it's inside of a sake bottle. And honestly, I do believe this dimension exists separately of Itachi, as Orochimaru, after being revived from Anko's curse seal, is almost an entirely different person, which makes me believe that the original Orochimaru is actually still currently residing in the realm of drunken dreams, which is a fun thought when you consider the fact that after Orochimaru was revived, he's only ever been a good guy, but everything he did before being stabbed by Itachi was awful. So Orochimaru actually wasn't forgiven and isn't living the easy life currently, he's actually living the worst possible fate, while his replacement is actually kind of a nice guy. The third place your soul can end up isn't as terrible as the realm of drunken dreams, but it's also not great. You see, because the third place you can end up is the Shinigami's stomach. Now this only happens to those who either cast Reaper Death Seal or are snagged by Reaper Death Seal, as Reaper Death Seal is technically just a summoning contract. Now it's a summoning contract with the god of death, but it's still just a summoning contract. However, unlike other summoning contracts, in order to summon the god of death, you need to give some. And the thing that the people using Reaper Death Seal are giving is their own soul. Upon handing over your own soul to the Shinigami extends its hand through your stomach to grab the soul of whoever you're trying to drag into the Shinigami stomach with you. In Hiruzen's case, it was Orochimaru. In Minato's case, it was half of Kurama. But here's the thing. When it comes to Reaper Death Seal, obviously you want to seal whoever you're giving your life to seal, but at the same time, you also kind of don't want to seal them. See, because the Shinigami stomach is kind of like limbo, in that you and whoever you sealed using Reaper Death Seal battle for eternity in the Shinigami stomach, meaning that while you may kill the person you're trying to seal using Reaper Death Seal, your battle is far from over, though there is some evidence that you may not have to fight. See, when Reaper Death Seal was originally explained to us, this is how it was explained, which would lead you to believe that Minato and Kurama should have been battling it out for about 16 years. However, somehow Minato and Kurama, while in the Shinigami stomach, decided to become homies, to the degree where Minato became the perfect Jinchuriki of Kurama while in the Shinigami stomach, which made fans speculate that if you pull somebody who isn't necessarily your enemy into the Shinigami stomach, you don't have to battle for eternity, as it's more likely than not that Hashirama, Hiruzen, and Tobirama didn't have to battle for the 4 or so years they were locked in the Shinigami stomach. And it's even more likely than that Hiruzen wasn't battling against Orochimaru's disembodied arms. But we just don't know. All we really know about the Shinigami is that the Uzumaki made masks that they kept in temples that they built all around Konoha. And these masks, when donned, summoned the shinigami. Now, a lot of people make the misconception that this is Reaper Death Seal. It's not, as Reaper Death Seal operates by summoning the shinigami to grab somebody else's soul. The donning of these masks doesn't cause the shinigami to try and grab somebody's soul, but instead puts the person who put the mask on to be able to control the shinigami, meaning that any movement that they make, the shinigami will also make, which is why Orochimaru, when he took his blade and cut open his stomach, the shinigami did the same thing. And as the stomach of the shinigami is where the souls are kept, everybody who had been pulled into the shinigami stomach using Reaper Death Seal was released. Minato and his half of Kurama, Hashirama, Hiruzen, Tobirama, and Orochimaru's arms, which then allowed Orochimaru to use Edo Tensei to bring the 4 Hokage back to life, because those that are currently existing in the shinigami's stomach can't be brought back using Edo Tensei, as Edo Tensei is a bridge between the living and the Pure Lands, meaning if your soul exists in any place that isn't the Pure Lands, Edo Tensei doesn't work, which includes things that are adjacent to the Pure Lands. You see, because the third place that your soul can go to is Purgatory. Now here is where we start to get into the Buddhism, because Purgatory is known as the middle plane of existence. It's based off the Buddhist idea Naraka. So while Naraka does technically translate either to hell or purgatory in English, it's very different from your Anglo-Saxon version of hell. Souls aren't sent to Naraka through divine punishment or because of how they lived in their previous life. Also, souls aren't meant to reside in Naraka permanently. There's actually technically 16 Narakas, 8 of which are hot and 8 of which are cold. It's said Narakas are supposed to exist as cavernous sublayers below the earth, and you enter Naraka because of how much karma you have. See, those who are born into Naraka realms don't have enough karma to go to the Pure Lands, and therefore they exist in Naraka until their karma has been used up. Once their karma has been used up, they're born into one of the higher worlds, which usually means they're reincarnated onto Earth. In Naruto, it's a bit different from this, as Purgatory in Naruto, while based on Naraka, is more about waiting for your family and friends than using up your karma. See, those who die in Naruto can either choose to stay in Purgatory or simply can't move on from Purgatory, or sometimes it's a combination of both. Sakamo Hatake is a really good example of this. You see, Sakamo couldn't move on from Purgatory because he had earthly regrets about killing himself and leaving Kakashi behind. However, more than that, he was also waiting in Purgatory for Kakashi. It's a new day, I had to go to the D&D premiere. See, Sakamo was waiting in Purgatory for Kakashi because he wanted to be able to apologize to Kakashi, which is why when Kakashi dies in his battle against Nagato, when he overuses all of his chakra, that Sakamo, his father, is waiting for him by a fire. And the conversation that Kakashi and Sakamo has allows Sakamo to move on to the Pure Lands, as not only does it assuage the earthly regrets he has with taking his own life, but he's also been able to talk to Kakashi. But Sakamo existing in Purgatory from the moment of his death is important for more reasons than just closure with Kakashi, as it's also speculated that the fact that Sakamo Hatake was in Purgatory is the reason he was never brought back using Edo Tensei, as Sakamo's body didn't exist in the Pure Lands, and once again, Edo Tensei creates a bridge from the Pure Lands to Earth. The reason that this is important is because it was stated that Sakamo Hatake was stronger than the 3 legendary Sannin combined, and therefore a lot of people always wondered why Kabuto wouldn't bring him back, and the fact that his soul wasn't accessible to Kabuto is most likely the reason why. Which brings us to the place that most people who die in the Naruto world end up in, the Pure Lands. This is the place where earthly beings have their soul reside after death. And while the closest facsimile to the Pure Lands in Judeo-Christian terminology would be heaven, the Pure Lands operate very differently from heaven. One, depending on the sect of Buddhism you're talking about, they're going to either be one Pure Lands or millions, if not infinite Pure Lands. It really depends if you're talking Chinese Buddhism or Indian Buddhism. But in very overarching and simplified terms, the Pure Lands are a realm where either a Buddha or a Bodhisattva live. And these great holy beings exist in their own little pocket realms and teach their dharma, which is kind of like the doctrine of their religion. And once earthly beings acquire enough karma through their reincarnation cycle, they get to go to a Pure Land. But the Pure Lands are technically just another step in a spirit's journey, because once you acquire enough karma to enter a Pure Lands, your soul continues its journey to spiritual enlightenment, as the true reason that any soul enters a Pure Land is to learn the dharma of the Buddha at the center of it. But outside the fact that sentient beings go to the Pure Lands when their karmic cycle is completed, Bodhisattvas go to the Pure Lands to continue in their Bodhisattva journey, as a Bodhisattva is simply a person who's on their way to becoming a Bodhi, which is to be awakened in the eyes of Buddhism, to become a sentient being who's become a fully realized Buddhist. So in essence, the Pure Lands actually don't operate like heaven at all. Heaven in Judeo-Christian ideologies is the final resting point. It's supposed to be the amalgamation of everything you would ever want on earth brought to you in one place, because of the good deeds and good life that you lived in your one life. Well, a place like the Pure Lands isn't one one place. It's also not something that you acquire in one lifetime. And when you get to the Pure Lands, you're not kicking up your boot and relaxing. You're still practicing your Buddhism. You're learning the Dharma of Buddhas, which is why I find the Pure Lands being the resting place for earthly souls in Naruto kind of interesting. Because in Naruto, it looks as though the Pure Lands more accurately represent heaven than the actual Pure Lands. But then again, interestingly, we don't really know, because we've actually only ever seen in Naruto depictions of Purgatory, with Sakamo waiting for Kakashi and Rin waiting for Obito. That pinkish area that Rin and Obito met again as children wasn't the Pure Lands, it was Purgatory, as Rin was waiting for either Kakashi or Obito in Purgatory before moving on to the Pure Lands. So we've technically never even seen the Pure Lands in Naruto, we just know that that's where souls go because of Hagoromo and Edo Tensei. But considering the fact that we basically do have a Buddha figure in Naruto who's considered the connection between the earth and the Pure Lands in Hagoromo, it's a possibility that the Pure Lands were actually constructed for the first time by Hagoromo, as the Pure Land's actual definition is a place built around one holy being. And in the case of Naruto, that would more likely than not be the god of shinobi. So it's a possibility that after Hagoromo's death that he used his newfound power to create the Pure Lands. As with the creation of the Pure Lands, he could catch all of the souls that were leaving the earth. And this makes sense when you consider the fact that Hagoromo traveled the entire world and taught everybody Ninshu, which is the spiritual half of creating chakra. Ninshu, in essence, is very similar to the teachings of Buddhism. It's about a subconscious connection that the entirety of humanity have with the people around them and the nature around them. And the reason that Hagoromo wanted to teach everybody Ninshu is so they could tap into the subconscious and find peace. But most people don't figure out this peace in one lifetime, which is why this spiritual energy was then combined with physical energy to make chakra, which was molded into ninjutsu for things like war. And therefore it's a possibility that Hagoromo collects souls into the Pure Lands to continue their teachings in Ninshu, to keep them attuned with his Dharma, his ideology of connecting through the spiritual subconscious plane that connects us all. So while there may not be a reincarnation cycle in Naruto as far as we know, those whose souls are brought into the Pure Lands are continuing their path towards ninja enlightenment through the teachings of Ninshu, which is why Edo Tensei is considered such a grievous sin. Because if you think about it, you're pulling these souls away from a literal god figure where they're continuing their path towards enlightenment to be used as a tool, battling directly against the teachings of Ninshu, which is why Edo Tensei is so frowned upon and is no longer used. I mean, two of the most important people in the entire show have quite literally met the god of their universe, and therefore they understand that even if Naruto wanted to use Edo Tensei to bring Minato to Boruto's 13th birthday, that pulling Minato from the Pure Lands is stripping him away from his own spiritual enlightenment. Though technically a day or two out of the Pure Lands wouldn't be the end of the world when you consider the fact that a Bodhisattva's path is said to take thousands of years to become a Bodhi, known to be one of the most arduous paths that anybody can undergo in really any religion. But yeah, it's basically everything we know about the afterlife in Naruto. We can speculate what they're up to based off the terminology we've been given, but at the end of the day, we just really don't know. But what do you guys think they're doing in the Pure Lands? Do you think Tobirama and all of the Uchihas are just in perpetual landlocked battle for the rest of eternity? Do you think it's closer to heaven, where Tobirama just gets to stab Madara in the stomach for the next 2,000 years? Tell me what you think in the comments below, and while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. I still want to do the series Nick Teaches People Things Through Anime, and this is a good entry onto that list.